right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first Arts Management webinar, Not-for-Profit Marketing Strategies for the Comeback. I just want to thank you all for joining us this morning and taking time out of your hectic schedules to be here. I think you're going to find this presentation really informative with some really helpful tips that you can put right to use. Just some housekeeping to start things off. We anticipate the entire presentation being about an hour. So we've got about 45 minutes for the actual presentation, then hopefully 15 minutes or so at the end to ask questions. We will be running a live Q&A at the end of the webinar, so please use the Q&A function on Zoom at the bottom. Just type in your question and we'll try to get to everybody's question before the end of our time here. This presentation is chock full of helpful info and tips that you can put right to use. So if you miss anything, don't worry. I will make the recording available on demand, so it'll be on the Long Island Arts Alliance website, and I will send everybody an email so that you have that to refer back to if you'd like. Okay, we've had a few more people join, so if you're just joining us, welcome. We're about to jump into our Arts Management webinar, Not-for-Profit Marketing Strategies for the Comeback. I would like to, on behalf of the Long Island Arts Alliance and our board of directors, I just want to say a big thank you to Ernie and the rest of his team at EGC Group for taking the time to put this presentation together. I think you're going to find it really informative and encouraging and optimistic, and I think that's something that we all need right now. So without further ado, I want to pass it over to our presenters, Jamie and Angela from the EGC Group. Hello.
Thank you, Lauren, and thanks everybody for having us here with you this morning. My name is Jamie Erhardt. I'm an account supervisor at the EGC Group, and with me today is Angela Mertz, who is the Vice President of Integrated Media. So what we're going to be sharing today are some insights from our comeback series that we're hosting at EGC. It's a weekly webinar that we've created for our clients, for local businesses, marketers, anybody that wants to join and get some hope, get some insights, get some information that will help better prepare us for the comeback after we kind of get through the other side of all of this. So your comeback will be bigger than the setback. We truly, truly believe this at the agency. I know myself, I'm an ever optimist, and when I was talking to Lauren the other day, I firmly believe this at the agency. We truly believe this, that if you're smart, if you're listening, if you're fighting, that at the end of all of this, you're going to be better for it on the other side. And I just wanted to take a moment and say to the group here that you guys are here, you're taking steps to think about your comeback, to think about ways that you can pivot. And I hope, as Lauren said, that there's some things that we'll be sharing today that will be helpful to each of your organizations, or that Angela or myself will say something that'll give you an idea that you can put into place as things move forward. So what you're looking at here is our wonderful office in Melville, New York. We're located on Walt Whitman Road. The walls here contain, you know, a lot of talented and smart, hardworking people. It's been sort of interesting for us at the agency having to pivot, and, you know, for people that work so hard from 8:30 to 5:30 and, you know, hours beyond, to now be doing all of the things that we did there remotely. And honestly, it's really just to commend the team that we have, that, you know, we're full service. We do everything that you could possibly think of in these four walls, and we've really just shifted all of that remotely. Everything from making TV spots, we've made multiple TV spots remotely from, you know, using our virtual content studio and just working with clients. So it's been a really exciting time. It's been a scary time, but, you know, we're making it work, and I hope that you guys are too. So some of the things we're going to be going through today are taking a look at some next steps, some tactical things that you guys can put into practice to map out your comeback. We're going to take a look at the search landscape and the huge changes that have taken place with Google. We want to provide that information to you just so that you guys can take a look at what's going on with your websites, with the search campaigns that you're doing. Angela is going to take us through some media insights and recommendations for post-COVID, and just quickly some low-cost ways that we can help your organization. So moving ahead, looking at the approach for the next 30 days, one thing that we think is really important is to take a step back from our typical planning cycle. So I know for media planning or working with clients, we typically plan between 6 months to an entire year to get that broad look at what the goals are, you know, for the next 12 months. But that feels really daunting at this point in time, because if you were to say, where do you see yourself a year from now, there's just so much that's unknown. So we absolutely recommend that people kind of pull that back and let's just look at the next 30 days and focus there. Things are starting to open back up. So really this is an opportunity for you to take a look and develop a new SWOT analysis. For those of you on the call that aren't familiar with that marketing term, it's basically identifying strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So obviously I can't create that for you here and now. It's something that everyone has to kind of sit and go through with their team, but you know, things to think about as far as opportunities go. We're in a strange time now where everybody's working from home. So an opportunity that I would see perhaps is that you guys don't have as many gatekeepers as it relates to donors and fundraising. Everybody's at home. You don't have receptionists and secretaries and other people to kind of get through. So that's one opportunity to think about. Another might be that we have a really captive audience as it relates to people consuming content. So those are some things to think about. So that would be the first step, is in this new normal, what does your SWOT analysis look like and what are the opportunities to take advantage of during this time? The next is to reset goals. And, you know, this could be something as a change from what are the expectations for your site traffic? Is there a fundraising goal that you want to accomplish within the next 30 days? So really the goals just need to be kind of culled back, focus on 30 days at a time. Let's not be thinking about things for next year just yet, as you know, more is opening up and things are changing on a daily basis. One thing that we've definitely urged our clients to do is to commit to 3 new types of content. So, you know, a lot of times people have never done a podcast before or written a blog or, you know, done video. As I said, we have a virtual content studio, and these are all the things that we're doing on a daily basis, and everybody in the agency is jumping in to make sure that it can happen for our clients, that it's happening for us as an agency. Another thing that might make sense there is, you know, for those with theaters, live streaming a solo performance, maybe sharing content or a performance that had been recorded previously. So think about ways that you could do something new and different for your organization, because now's the time to test those types of initiatives. Andrew's going to talk more about all of the changes in media that we've seen, but one overarching statement is that when this all happened, especially for local businesses in New York, a lot of marketers and a lot of businesses were really afraid to spend their marketing dollars, so they pulled back on a lot of their media buys. So obviously this created a need for the media groups that we work with, and they're offering really, really great and competitive pricing. So if you have a media budget, now's the time to look at reallocating that. Now's the time to look at doing things like TV that maybe you've never done before. And we can assure you that people are watching. We had for a client where we had a direct response spot that we did during quarantine, and year over year, their calls increased 4 times. So when you think about that, like, people are still consuming media, people are still picking up the phone, people are still engaging with brands. So from a cost perspective, now's the time to get involved. Refocus efforts. So, you know, this might be a great time for those of you who never got engaged with reputation management to refocus on that and take a look. You know, it's that sort of time where we have the ability to do some housekeeping. We have the ability to, you know, take a look at where we want to be on the other end of this and how do we prepare for that. That brings me to the next one, which I know is a daunting task, but I know a lot of groups took advantage of the payroll grant, and some people that were laid off and furloughed were brought back. So I think now's a good time to think about, is everybody being utilized at 100%? And if not, are these sort of the activities that we can do to get them involved in, so that when things start to open up, you could really segment email, segment direct mail pieces, and just focus your efforts a little bit more on that. And last but not least, certainly celebrate those wins. Everybody could really use it now. And I think that your organization will be better for it. So moving on to search, and, you know, obviously so many things have changed over the last 10 weeks. The landscape has changed, the way people are searching has changed, the results that you get from Google for the query that you entered look a lot different now. And it's such an interesting time with Google specifically. There's no historical data that really could prepare us for this. So think about that a little bit, that over the last 10 weeks, there was this huge increase in search for the coronavirus, but not really a lot of content to serve those queries. So Google's been sharing with marketers, sharing with everybody who wants the information, how things have changed and kind of how to navigate that a little bit. So we're going to be sharing some of those recommendations. Now, one of the things that Google is telling us is specifically year-over-year searches, that there are certain keywords and queries that have just seen an enormous lift. So obviously you would think things like, where can I buy toilet paper, hand sanitizer, or PPE, masks, so on and so forth. Those are all things we could think of. But because people's behavior has changed, search for certain things and entertaining kids at home, so on and so forth, those searches have increased as well. So just an interesting tidbit that actually yeast, because there's so many quarantine home cooks and people looking to make homemade bread, yeast has gone up 900% year over year. So I thought that was, you know, pretty interesting. So to me, what I recommend that everybody do, there's a tool, and you can see the URL on the bottom of my screen, thinkwithgoogle.com. And basically what I recommend that everybody do is take a look at some of the searches and some of the queries that people are doing, how the search behavior is changing, and identify if there's anything there that you guys can utilize and implement for your organization. So for example, a virtual tour at a cultural center, or, you know, live streaming of a performance. These are things that when we talk about the pivot and making changes, Google's giving us the information of what people are looking for. So now it's up to us to provide them with that content. One thing that we've seen definitely with the analytics that we see with our clients is that people are adapting their search terms to include virtual, online, and at home. So one recommendation here would absolutely be have a look at your own analytics, take a look to see what keywords your community is utilizing to get to your website and see if there's an opportunity there. If within the content on your site, you're not utilizing these keywords, another recommendation would absolutely be to add them. The reason being, if you're offering virtual museum tours, your website needs to be populated with that search term so that if me at home, I'm looking for something to share with my daughter, your organization comes up because Google knows that you have that particular offering. Some other things as it relates to search engine optimization. So essentially what that is, people including content and other things on their website that says to Google, if somebody asks this question or is looking for this type of information, I have it on my website. Now, SEO is a little bit of a slower gain. So changes that you are making now will be felt over 1 to 2 months. So that's why I think it's really important if people haven't made these changes that they do so now. But, you know, looking at technical SEO issues at this point in time. So is that updating backlinks, broken links, fixing images, if that's adding meta tags and title tags. So I know a lot of people probably aren't familiar with the technical part of that, but I would just recommend whomever's responsible for that for your website, that these are the things that they're checking out and doing now. Running a site audit to make sure, you know, are there areas of improvement, things that are loading really slowly that you could work on? Are your business profiles up to date? We'll touch a little bit more on that because that's incredibly important. Make sure that you're updating content regularly on the site. Websites are not meant to be created and then not updated. We recommend, you know, you doing that on a very consistent basis. That'll make you rank higher with Google and search queries. So absolutely use your website. This is your new storefront. This is your new office. This is your new front door. So the website, your website really needs to be that for your organization. And then one last note to improve your COVID-19 schema markup. Now, a schema markup is, and I'm sure you've all seen this as you've done a search on Google. If you ask Google a question, it serves results like an answer versus linking you to a website. One very easy way to think about it is a lot of times you'll get that for concerts or for movie times. If you answer a question, it just shows up with the answer versus redirecting you. One thing to keep in mind during this, that Google has a schema markup for special announcements, for events. So if those are things that you have for your organization, absolutely utilize this to help people find the things that you're offering. We noticed at the agency that clients' organic rankings were going down during COVID. And the reason is that Google is actually ranking websites lower if they don't have a COVID message. So I know everybody, I mean, I was kind of joking with Lauren about that during the quarantine, I got email blasts from my dentist, from Best Buy. I felt like everybody on the planet was letting me know how they were dealing with COVID. But Google's looking for that. Google is looking for you to provide that type of information to people that are searching. And what I would say for organizations that do have the public come to the organization and go through the front doors for theaters, for cultural centers, so on and so forth. Use this prime real estate for a space to let people know what it's going to look like when they get there. Set the expectation of at theaters. Are you having people sit 10 rows apart? Is the entrance going to change in some way, shape, or form to allow traffic to go through? So really utilize this for a spot where you can just let people know what to expect when you reopen. One other thing to note, on May 4th, Google made a huge update to their algorithm. Please do some research as to what this means for your organization and make any updates that make sense for your website. You know, Google algorithms are certainly tricky. I would be lying if I said anybody really understood it front to back, but they do give us tips to help us to make websites better. So whomever is in charge of the website for your organization, definitely have a look and see how that impacts things. So Lauren had mentioned when we first talked about doing this webinar that the group was very interested in learning more about, you know, low-cost media, ad credits, and things that were available to not-for-profits at this point in time. So I thought that more than just providing a bunch of links on a screen, what we did at the agency was we created a landing page for your group. The URL is on the top of the screen. I'm going to provide it to Lauren. She's going to send it out. I'll show it again at the end of the presentation. But essentially what we did was we created a landing page for you guys that you can only get to through this URL. So it's specific and special for you. And then you guys could go and read more about all of the opportunities that we found as it relates to COVID. And second on that, when Lauren mentioned about the interest in media, I knew that there would be nobody better than our own Angela Mertz to help you guys with some recommendations. Angela's been with the agency since 1997. She is an incredible resource for all things media, and she's put together some great information for you guys as it relates to things that are going on now, things that are going to be happening in the near future. So Ange, I'm going to turn it over to you and start with your first slide.
Thanks for that, Jamie. So everyone's heard this word pivot, right? So a pivot is a change in strategy without a change in vision. So I thought this quote actually said it best, where pivot seems so scary to so many of our clients, but it's truly not. It's really your end goal is still the same. It's just a matter of the path that you take now to get to that end goal. So yes, the media landscape has definitely shifted and there's been a lot of changes. So what I tried to do here for you today is kind of give you an overview of the changes that have been happening and where opportunities lie for organizations like yourself. So just to give you a sense of how much things have changed, advertisers that have been able to ride the wave through the March through May and into June, they have changed by drastic numbers. I mean, changes of 40% of their ad budgets have been completely changed from what they thought they were going to look like in February. So it's really so important to just keep on top of where the consumers are, because the idea is really not to chase, but to really be where the customers are. So many of the changes have gone to the next slide, which is video. So video advertising has always seemed so daunting for so many of our clients. It seems so big and broad and we can't do it, it's too much. But quite honestly, it is exactly where the audiences are right now. They're consuming video in every spot. It's in YouTube, it's in linear television, they're binge watching on Netflix, they are consuming video in Facebook, there's Facebook Live. video of all types is where it's at. So we actually created the content studio with that in mind, knowing that our clients needed low-cost video more quickly, something that they can turn around that could be used in all scopes. So it could be used on linear television, or it could be used on any kind of digital platform as well. So I do want to mention for those participants today that are Long Island and local, the low CPMs is a true statement. There's no better time for you if you've ever wanted to dip your toes into cable television advertising. There's no better time to give that a shot, because there really are a lot of great deals to be had out there for anyone that's willing to put a plan together. So something to just definitely keep in mind for those out there. So the next is a little obvious, right? Social media, but actually social media was seeing a little bit high CPMs and lower engagement just because of all the noise that's out there. So what we're seeing now is actually engagement for those, again, who've been able to put content out during this period of time. The engagement for them has risen by threefold. So that it really is where people are consuming content. They are still, especially with gatherings so limited, it's still where they're having conversations with friends, and with those uncertain brands, as Jamie mentioned earlier, pulling back, the cost per impression is so much lower there right now. So it is the time, if you've been hesitant on pursuing anything within the social media space, now's definitely the time, and most especially with video content. So as I had mentioned in the slide previous, how important video is, it's very important also within the social media scape. And when I say video, it's not scary, it's not daunting. It could be simple, it could be a GIF, it could just be something, a flip through slideshow. As long as it's got an engaging value and it's movement, that's considered video within social media. So it's really not scary, I promise. Most organizations, if not all organizations, have a social media page already. So these are just some tips and tricks that we use at the agency, and that I'm passing my knowledge on to you all, of things that you could do during this time and throughout to make sure to get the most out of those pages. It's second to your website. These are your other doors. So they're your back door, your side door. These are the places where most people are finding out a little bit about your voice and who you are. So the first tip I would say is give them a reason to follow you. Followers are still important, because, especially from an organic standpoint, if you do want to have those conversations without paying too much, it's still important that you have a group of followers. And oftentimes those followers can absolutely be an influencer and be somebody that can speak and broadcast on your behalf. So super still important to give people reasons to follow you. One of them is, and I know this is like a broken record probably at this point, but one of them is to provide that video content for them that is something that people see a value in and that they find engaging, and will, if you're continually putting out pieces of content like that, people will continue to follow you. Another little tip is, and it's, again, sounds obvious, but some brands and some organizations just get super busy, and it's something they forget about. But messages are important to follow up on as quickly as you possibly can within the social media space. It's 83% of people that send a message through Messenger to one of their brands, organizations, someone they're following, they expect an answer that same day. So just keep that in mind when you're receiving messages. A little tip and trick is to change your profile photo and pictures as often as you can, because each time you do, it rolls into the feed. So it's almost like a free way for you to get, without thinking too hard without putting together too much tricky content. It's a free way for you to just get back on the top of mind for people that are in their newsfeed. So a little tip. And as we mentioned, CPMs are at their lowest. And so this is definitely the time to explore paid social efforts. The targeting is there. You could get down to zip codes and geography. So it's a super, super affordable way for you to broaden your reach in the social media landscape. Another tip is creating the content plan. So one thing, people are getting savvy and they can notice when you're just kind of throwing some stuff out there. So our recommendation to clients and to anyone is to give some thought to a content plan. What is it that I want to put out there? What can I say that's going to engage my audience? We do a lot of not-for-profit work. I don't even know, you may have noticed it from the content studio, we created Born United for the United Way of Long Island. It's really a terrific video. I would suggest checking it out. If you're gonna head to our website, you could check it out. Mm-hmm. It's really great, but it's things like that. It had a purpose, it had a plan, put out content that makes people feel good, that supports your cause. Those are the types of things that people definitely wanna see. And then choose the right networks. So yes, the landscape is vast when it comes to social media these days. My recommendation for all of you is you need Facebook. Facebook's the king. It's the one. So be prepared to have content, engaging content that would live there. But some of you who are maybe a museum or a theater who have really wonderful video or wonderful pictures, Instagram might be something that's important to you. Think about it for yourself. Don't feel pressure just because it's where the people are. Trust me, the people will find you with the right content. So, another little thing we're noticing during this time is how mass marketing has shrunk. And so most brands were trying to throw that net out there and go out mass, and now really everyone's trying to just speak to their neighbor and speak to somebody that's really close to them. Local news is seeing huge jumps from that. Searches on local news sites for things to do near me, because people won't be traveling. You won't be seeing that for this year. That's just sort of the reality of the situation. And I had seen some data that actually said that people are still moving in cars and still driving, but it's just short distances really often. So that being said, the local aspect, anything local marketing, will see definitely more of a value for you now than ever before. And along those same lines are really direct marketing. And what direct marketing means is people talking to you. So that's what people are looking for now, especially from organizations like yourselves. If you're going to ask for any kind of fundraising or donations of any kind, they want to know you a little bit before they do that. And the best, easiest, and most effective way to do it would be through direct marketing services. Simple ones. You can just use the Messenger app from Facebook, something super simple, but you could send a message similar to this one. It's a message that I had seen when I had attended a webinar, and then later on was contacted again asking if I wanted to do a training from Facebook. So these are the types of kind of email marketing, push notifications out to your list, to your segmentation. This is the time to do that sort of thing, and to do it more one-to-one, on a one-to-one basis. Fast, measurable, and it really helps to open up communication to those lists that Jamie had mentioned earlier. If you're segmenting your lists, this is a great way to go at actually talking to those people. So out of all of this, you'll be ideally driving traffic to your website, as well as driving traffic to your Facebook page, either one, wherever it is that you're housing the most and the best content for someone. But our recommendation is, let's not forget about it. Make sure that you're capitalizing on that traffic that you're sending. And this way, if somebody comes and watches a virtual tour on one of your on your sites, or if they put in that they're interested in receiving a newsletter about the next, I don't know, I saw this from the zoo. They were holding they were having different animals that they were highlighting. So they were asking people to sign up if they were interested in seeing the next animal. And so this is similar in that scope where you can send messages to those people about your next upcoming virtual tour. Or if somebody watched a tour, you can now ask for a donation. It's that type of thing. Remarketing is actually super important. It's so low cost, so low cost. So it should really be a part of everybody's marketing program. So I leave you in my section with, don't stress so much about trying to make people conform to the things that you need. Just meet them where they are. So when you're thinking about media options that are for you, think about everything I said today. These are, most of them are as lower cost than you would even think, but you'll find consumers where they are. I do suggest you come to our website and you fill out you come to the URL and you fill out those forms and those links, because it will give you lots of options of what exists for your specific business. And from there, might give you a little bit even more insight as to which types of things you can really be pursuing.
Thanks, Ange. So I'm gonna, from here, end with one, what I think is such an important bit before we get to the Q&A. So one thing that Google is telling us that we're seeing a huge increase in people looking for things that are near me and that are open now. So we know from the algorithm that Google serves up your listing or any listing from a search query based on 3 different things. The first is relevance. So you can see here in the slide that I did a search for hardware. So obviously I don't want to be served up a beauty supply location. It has to be relevant to the search query that someone puts in. Second is distance, which of course that makes sense. One thing with Long Island just to keep in mind, because this happened to me yesterday, Google doesn't have a way, if you do a radius search, you know, say something within the nearest 25 miles or what have you. I get served up things for Connecticut all the time because I live in Port Jeff all the way north. So just keep that in mind when you look at radiuses. The third thing is prominence. So as I was saying before, as it relates to search engine optimization, Google wants to know, is your site the most relevant place to send somebody for that query? Do you link out to other places on your site? Do other sites link back in to you? Do you have a popular website? All of these things play a role in prominence, but also reviews do as well. So if you're not engaged with your Google reviews and responding and looking at that and playing a role in that, that's going to reduce your ranking. Another thing that happens with reviews that I don't know if people realize, if people put a qualifier for best and then whatever they're looking for, if you have fewer than 4 stars, your organization won't show up in a search. So we could talk more about reviews in a moment, but I just wanted to mention that as we go through this information. What we're seeing as a trend, and this slide is pre-pandemic, but I'm sure it holds true, if not now, maybe even more than it did. 50% of mobile users that do a search completely bypass a website because you're receiving so much information from the actual search query. And you can see here that desktop is over 30%. So this is what I mean by that. I simply did a search from my home for an urgent care near me. You could see that. You could see just based on adults how much things have changed over the last 10 weeks. The first thing I see is a COVID-19 alert, I guess, because I did an urgent care search. If you scroll down to where I've identified the paid ads, that's for a virtual appointment. So I wasn't even being served an ad for my nearest urgent care. It was a national virtual doctor's visit that they were serving up. And then if you go lower below the map, you could see the wealth of information that you get just from a search. So I see what's near me. I see on the map where it's located. I have a phone number if I want to call and like ask some questions. So there's really no need for me to go to a website to learn more with all of the information I'm being served. This is a great example with Ace Hardware. I actually did this search recently, and that's why I'm sharing it. If you look here, Google's giving us new offerings as far as being able to add something like curbside pickup. And if you see the triangle with the exclamation point, it says hours or services may differ. So what this means is this company doesn't have a listings management program that's making sure that their hours are up to date. And before you drive there, you should call to see if they're open. And I did just that because I'm so familiar with listings. And lo and behold, they were not open till 8 p.m. So imagine as a consumer, as someone that's looking to go out and do something, you're putting on masks and gloves, so on and so forth, and I get there and they're closed. That would be incredibly disappointing anytime, but especially now. So we definitely recommend that everyone stay on top of Google and Google My Business. Google wants just to make things accessible and useful for everybody, but one thing we need to keep in mind is many times, as I've mentioned Google during this presentation, there are tons of places where information about your organization lives throughout the internet. So we have an incredible platform. It's called Raydeus Local. Note the spelling of Raydeus is different than the way you would normally spell it. But I'm asking each of you, if you can, to write down this URL. I'm going to share it again at the end of the presentation. And at the top right corner of the website, you're going to see a button for a free business scan. So what happens when you do a business scan is that you're either going to see, if you could see over here on the left, that your company, your organization has a listings management program, or you're going to see a number, which you'll see on the right side, that a majority of your information on the internet is inaccurate, as well as how your organization is doing as far as reviews against others. So listings are incredibly important because people just definitely feel like you're more reputable if you have your information filled out. I have two here just for a bakery. You can see the one on the right would be the one that you'd want to go to. It just looks more inviting. I see their reviews. I see information. People are going to be more likely to see your website when things open back up, to physically go see you. So having your listings up to date is really important. So with a local listings management program like Raydeus, how it works is you put your information about your organization in one place, and it populates all of these listing programs across the web in real time. So think about that. You're going to be opening up soon. Your hours are most likely going to change pretty frequently. So you can take the time to go to each and every one of these sites and update your hours, or you could utilize a listings management program like Raydeus and update it in one place, and then it goes live across the entire internet. On top of that, and I mentioned reviews, one, because it's so important as it relates to Google ranking you higher because you're engaged with them. One thing to keep in mind, only 40% of businesses and organizations even respond to review. So it's an opportunity. And for those of you that haven't before, I definitely encourage you to get involved now, because by engaging, the data shows that your stars are going to increase. And remember, we want everybody to have 4 stars or more so that you're showing up no matter what the criteria is when someone does a search. With Raydeus, you were able to receive in your inbox an email that says you've received a review, and then you could go to the portal and respond to that review, and regardless of the website that it's on, it's going to populate there. So just to go over that again, you'll get an email saying that maybe you got a review on Google, Yelp, City Search, what have you. You go into one portal, you respond, and it populates there. This is the best way to ensure that you're communicating with people that are reviewing you. Because keep in mind now, guys, gone are the days where someone would go to Yelp to see a review that are looking for that. Reviews show up in every single search that you do. So it's really important that everybody take advantage of something like that. One thing that's great with Raydeus also, that you have access to a digital dashboard. So regardless if it's something that we're running for you, like an ad campaign, a PPC campaign at the agency, regardless of who's running the campaign, you can enter your data into this system and in one dashboard have all of these metrics in one place. So typically the items that I shared with you, so updating your hours, updating your address, phone number, and doing that and having it aggregate across the intranet is part of it. Google My Business support is part of it, and making sure that all of that information is up to date and accurate, because Google, we know, is the biggest search engine out there. The real-time dashboard and the review management, where you get the email and you're able to respond in the platform. That's typically $89 a month, but we're offering that for your group for a reduced rate of $69 a month, what I think is an incredible investment to make, especially as things are opening back up and getting a little bit more back to normal. So I'm going to turn it over to Lauren for some Q&A. I appreciate your time. And I'm actually going to leave this slide up, Lauren, just so that if people would like, they could have a look at the URLs and write them down while we do the Q&A.
Perfect. Yeah, I was adding some of the links that you were mentioning in the chat as we went along as well. So you'd be able to get those links in there. But we'll certainly send out the URLs and the recording once this is all over. One little tidbit too, I've talked to a few different organizations, and I thought this was just a really smart thing to do. As Jamie and Angela were mentioning, reviews are so important, and in the way that you show up and the way people engage with your organization online. You know, right now, I know people are strapped for money, so asking for donations might feel a little icky at times. Some organizations are asking, in lieu of donations, to go online and leave a review for their organization. And I think that's a really great way to engage with the people who love you and who appreciate your mission and what you do for our communities. And at the same time, they're helping you in a really positive way, because they're helping you with this organic search optimization. So that was a really interesting thing that I think some people are doing that I wanted to share. I think that would be really cool. Does anybody have any questions at all for Jamie and Angela? I don't see any in the Q&A box.
And one thing, Lauren, while you're asking that, I just wanted to add, I've included my email address here. I realize that Angela and I have covered a lot, and that there is kind of a wide range of expertise on the call. So if anyone has any questions or something that we didn't cover that they're curious about, feel free to pop me an email. And if I know the answer, I'll respond. And if I don't, I'll get the answer and respond to you as quickly as I can. So
that's great. Thank you so much. I don't see any questions coming through. So if you are interested in learning more, or you have any questions, like Jamie said, please feel free to reach out. And I think if no one has any questions, then we can wrap it up this morning. Oh, here we go. I would like to tell about grants for Raydeus. Okay, so Dale, I'm gonna unmute you really quickly. Hi, Dale.
He looks still muted.
He looks muted, actually.
Dale Lewis, I'm Vice Chair.
Oh, there he is.
There we go. Hi, Dale.
Hi, Dale.
I'm Dale Lewis. I'm Vice Chair of the Arts Alliance. And I'd like to first thank Ernie Canadeo and Angela and Jamie for this terrific webinar. I'd like also to tell you that at Arts Reach Fund, we want to help with this generous offer made by ECG to provide Raydeus at a discounted rate. So if you would like to do so, we'll have a quick application turnaround, and you can message us at Arts Reach Fund, ARTS, reachfund.org.
That's great.
Thank you, Dale. That's a wonderful offer. artsreachfund.org. Perfect. And then a couple people have asked if we're going to be recording, or if we recorded this webinar, and we did, and we will be sharing it absolutely to everybody just as soon as we're done here. And I will include information on the Arts Reach Fund and their offer for a grant for taking advantage of the Raydeus program. And other than that, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to Jamie and to Angela and to Ernie.
Thank you for having us.
We really appreciate it.
And
Stay tuned for our next arts management webinar. We're hashing out the details, but we'll send an email just as soon as we know more.
Thank you, and good luck, everybody. We hope you do all of these great things. You can do it.
Thank you so much.
Don't be scared.
Bye.
Don't be scared.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.